And so your heart doesn't only hurt if you lose a romantic relationship, it hurts if you lose a friendship, or if you have tension in a family relationship, or a job situation that goes wrong. Your heart breaks when you lose people or things that are important to you. So anything of significance, you feel it. You feel grief over.
Welcome to Lovely Esteem. I'm Lovely, the auntie you always wanted, the sister girlfriend you didn't know you needed, honey. You got to have self-love to have self-esteem. And here we know that God don't make no junk. So we're going to sit down, talk about it, and see how we can fix it, baby. Let's do it.
Welcome to the podcast. This is Lovely. I am joined today by licensed marriage therapist, Tracie Pinnock. Yes, I always mess up her last name because I want to just be like Tracie. And that's just not how it's supposed to go. Tracie, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate the amount of love you gave me before. And now I just feel like it's a really cool, like, sisterhood. It's like a distant sisterhood, but it still feels like a sisterhood because the amount of positivity I've seen from you, even through all of the different stages you've gone through with your journey and the journey that you've spoken to others about. I thought it was such a beautiful story in a positive way to like work through pain, but also help heal others. And for me, my series is Healing Through Conversation. And you are perfect for that because if you can talk to your therapist or your counselor, leave all them secrets with you guys and walk out the door. That is the best thing. So Tracie, introduce yourself.
Yes, so I'm Tracie Pinnock. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist with a therapy practice that is based out of Norwalk, Connecticut. Although right now I'm doing everything virtually, so through telehealth. And it looks like that's where my practice is going to stay online and virtual, because it's very convenient for a lot of people. And I am really getting good feedback from clients around the convenience of it. I specialize in working with women and with couples. I help women deal with stressful life transitions. So that can be heartbreak. It can be various losses of different kinds. We oftentimes think of deaths, but there's all sorts of losses that people may have in their lives. So I help them to cope with the stress and the grief of it all. And with couples, I like to help them prepare for their lives together through premarital counseling, as well as help them address issues that come up along the way.
Wonderful, wonderful. And also, I know that with the practice going virtual and you having the ability to see so many people, the pandemic probably for you, even though you were already thriving in your practice, really flipped for you in the most positive way, where some people have seen a decline.
Yeah. This is definitely one of those blessing and a curse, bittersweet, sort of situations. Out of, the initial chaos and turmoil of it all, it definitely, going virtual has allowed me to be more accessible to people throughout the state of Connecticut. Whereas before, if they had to drive to me from, an hour away, then we wouldn't have likely been able to work together. Where now, we're able to access each other online. So it's really allowed me to be more accessible to people. It's helped my practice grow. Also, just the stress of these times tends to send people into therapy when they're feeling anxious or depressed or, just trying to figure it all out. So all of this has resulted in me getting frequent calls and people frequently reaching out to begin therapy.
Which is such a lovely thing. And you mentioned before, that some of your focus is on heartbreak and repairing relationships. And I really wanted to elaborate a little on that because I think so many times people make the assumption that heartbreak is only in an intimate way with like a partner, but it could be, you're having a hard time with like a parent or a sister, or even coming to terms with life changes that don't seem so easy for you. So can you kind of elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Heartbreak is when your heart is hurting, and so your heart doesn't only hurt if you lose a romantic relationship. It hurts if you lose a friendship, or if you have tension in a family relationship, or a job situation that goes wrong. Your heart breaks when you lose people or things that are important to you. So anything of significance, you feel it. You feel grief over it. So it applies to any situation, honestly.
Question, and I think this just popped up in my head. Have you had to deal with so far any of the mental ramifications of the COVID-19 deaths that have happened with some of the family members that have
Um,
come up?
yeah, I mean, I've had clients. Um, Wow, let's see. Because I've also done some contracting work with other agencies for therapy who were not. So I've had clients who are not straight through my practice, but I've worked with other agencies, and I've had some clients who themselves have had it. A couple, and more so people who have known people who have contracted it or died from it. By all means, it's definitely, this is seeming like something that, when it's all said and done, most of us, if not all of us, will know someone who knows someone who had the virus and very possibly passed away from it, for sure. Definitely have had to deal with people coping with that and grieving that, and the complicated process of grieving now, where you can't go to the hospital to visit your loved ones, you can't have traditional funerals. So that adds a whole other layer to the grieving process that is very hard for us all to deal with right now.
Yeah, it just popped in my head because I know that we've had people who've passed away that we've known, and it was just, I mean, it seems because the days are just kind of blurring into each other,
Yeah.
you can't even tell, you don't even know what to say. And because it's no event, a funeral used to be an event.
Yeah.
Somebody passed away, you would pay your respects, and then you go to the funeral, and then there would be a
Right. Oop, lost you.
okay.
Okay, we're back.
What just okay. I'm like, edit it out. Okay, well, error. I was like, I know I put that on airplane mode, and the phone was like, no, you didn't. Um, Life's craziness. But no, I just wanted to ask that question because I know that a lot of people may not even think about that right now because they haven't even finished grieving yet. But just the idea of really contacting a therapist to work through a lot of the grieving that they're going to, when everybody can go back outside, it's going to be a very different world still.
Yeah.
And I think that people not being able to be able to support each other in the way we're used to will
Hmm.
cause a lot of PTSD later on.
Yeah, yeah,
That you got
yeah. It can result in what we refer to as complicated grief. So the grief process just extending much longer than might be expected, or it really impacting your day to day life in much more significant ways than expected. And also, as a side note, it's not just for people who have passed away from COVID. So, like, I have a brother who passed away not from COVID, but only weeks ago. But the way we had to handle his funeral and the arrangements was complicated, and figuring it out, and it definitely, like, complicated the whole process. So to your point, we're we may not fully realize the impact of the experiences that we're having right now until time has passed and we realize that we weren't able to do things in a typical way that we might do, that allows us to really mourn for people in the ways that we need to. So this is definitely the effects of all of this in a whole bunch of ways, mentally, financially, physically, all the ways, right, are going to be long lasting, honestly, because there's all these trickle down effects of everything.
and I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
My biggest thing was when all of this broke out, everybody would be like, well, you can still visit your mom. I'm like, no, I will not visit my mom. We're in a different house in different areas. I said, and the thought of me going to her house nonchalantly and
Right.
giving her something that could cause her something else, it's not something that I can deal with. I can't handle that stress.
Yeah.
And You know, I mean, I've seen my mother in my driveway. I've seen my mother at the store. Like, we're like, hi, what's that? Hi, you know.
Right.
And eventually, we started to see each other more, but it's because we had isolated ourselves so much that the probability of us, you know, obtaining it was was as low as we could make it, you know,
Right.
rational.
Right.
So we're going to start the questions, but like I said, I would like to ask the questions, but kind of flip it a little bit because I really want people to understand the depth of the depths and the I can't even think of the word I'm looking for right now. To understand the depths and the necessary need for therapy, because I know for me when I started therapy, there was nothing you could do to keep me from it. Like it was every Thursday at 8 o'clock. I was there on the chair. You know, even if I was in a great mood, I still made sure I went because it's like medicine. You don't stop just because you feel good. You do it until the doctor tells you, okay, you know, you can chill out now. Like we could get to 2 weeks. And then I felt like we were breaking up. I'm like, what do you mean? Don't you like seeing me? They're like, hey, other people need to sit here too. I was like, oh wow, they do, don't they? Like, we're not together. Is that what you're telling me? We're not. It's not just us, you know.
Yes.
My second question: what event occurred today that made you the most happiest or proudest, just for today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fairly small event, but kind of big. It's my son, who's 5. He's going to be starting kindergarten this school year coming up, and so just a couple of weeks. And he's working on sight words for reading. You know, he's learning to read, and he's been doing really well. So we went through his sight words, and he knows most of them, and that makes me really proud. And I'm really excited for him because he's excited. It's kindergarten, and you know all that means, right? So yeah, it was kind of a little thing, but it's also kind of big, and that made me really proud.
And how are you handling virtual teaching?
Okay, so hasn't officially started yet, but I hope I handle it well. What I will say is I'm not overly concerned because it's kindergarten. So the things he has to learn are things that I can actually do. I don't have an 8th grader, a 10th grader who I'm like trying to, I'm like, listen, math was not my subject. I can get him through counting, learning the numbers, which he knows pretty well now. So it's not gonna be anything too much. So with that, I am not so concerned about the curriculum and the content that he's going to be learning. I can help him through that. I think and again, what we're all having to juggle and figure out, you know, as parents or just, you know, working in or out of the home is the scheduling of it all, of how I make sure that I'm able to be present for him to get him through the lessons. And you know, every school is just trying to figure it out, and they're sending letters and emails saying, we're going to do this. And how about this? And I'm just here to say that these first couple of weeks, let's just buckle our seatbelts and go for the ride. I don't know. No one knows. No one knows. Sit here acting like they really know because we don't. So we're just gonna wing and a prayer, as they say. So you know, it's gonna be an adventure. That's the way I'm choosing to see it.
Mine's is she was in 11th grade. I mean, she is in this school year. She's going into 12th grade. So her senior year, she doesn't even get to start. She missed the prom and everything for her junior year.
I know.
And the weird thing is that I think that she's 17, but I think that the fact that she was like her birthday fell right when you couldn't, like you had to start school later because of her date of birth. And I think the fact that she had that year where she had to double take really helped her out, because even though she was frustrated, she was so kind of still relaxed about it. You know, it was like, so we have to do this so we won't get sick. I can do that.
Right.
The social side of it is completely different, because
yeah,
I thought she was going to lose her mind. Like, hey,
yeah,
my friend.
Yeah, this is a hard, like her age is a very hard time to be going through this. And it is a time where like I've mentioned that like high school, juniors, seniors, and then like college students, either entering college or leaving college. I think those are very particularly difficult times to be experiencing this because there's so many milestones and during those times that you can't redo, you know? And so whereas like even though it is going to be a little odd for my son to start kindergarten virtually and not go into school and be able to experience kindergarten, right? Still, like he's so young that this, in some ways, can be a blip on the radar. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, well, at least when it comes to milestones, but whereas at her age and again the college age, it's very like you can't redo freshman year of going to college where you thought you were going to stay in the dorms and now you can't, or like all of that. It's particularly
Yeah.
hard. And prom and graduation, that's particularly hard. Yeah.
So I was like, I said, let's do whatever we need to do. So, we were working on it. So this question, actually, you and I spoke off camera about this, but just about the business. What have you done in the last 30 days to accomplish your dreams or goals?
Hmm. Yeah. I'm fortunate to say that like on an almost daily basis, I'm doing something to accomplish my dreams or goals just by having my private practice because it's thriving. And, I'm helping people and I'm talking to clients about the stuff that I feel like I'm particularly capable of talking to them about. And I'm getting calls or emails for people to start. And my business is growing where I'm branching out into like trying to make online courses and all of this sort of stuff. So I'm on a pretty daily basis. Um, I'm doing things that to help me achieve my dreams and goals. Like it's a regular thing for me now, and it feels really good. I'm really fortunate to be able to say that.
You wear it well. You wear it well. I'm just saying, like, it's just, I love seeing, and it's not like, it's so funny because my brother, if he was here, he'd be like, it's because you're women. I'm like, no. I love seeing people live out their dreams because so many people get stuck in their head and they're so capable of doing it, but because of fear or insecurities, it never makes it past the thought process.
Right.
But to be able to really like throw your whole spirit into it, like when you do that and you kind of lose the fear, you have to have a little fear because it keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful to watch you, like you have been ever since we did our interview together and you got on my radar and I would see you, like your videos were popping every time I would look and see you were talking. I'm like, yes, girl, come on, do this. Because that social media thing is crazy. It's a lot of learning curve.
Yeah, it's a whole job in itself, which is why there are social media managers and all sorts of stuff because it is its own journey. That's for sure.
Me, and I'm like, I am stumbling through with my eyes closed, but we're gonna make it work. How has faith or lack thereof shaped your life?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I guess I would start by saying that like I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. And so what that has meant for me is that I I've had my own journey over it's been a good 6, 7 or so years around this idea of faith and faith in something. So I'm definitely someone who believes there's a higher being than us. We are not it. Um, that there's a greater wisdom. One of the philosophies that I really like believe in is like law of attraction. So this idea of, in very simple terms, what you put out, you get. So positive brings positive, negative brings negative. There's a whole lot more to it, of course. But with that being said, that's something that I have leaned on a lot, and I have to say has had a lot to do with my personal journey and my professional journey and my personal and professional successes. Like this idea of how I have more power than I realize over how things come to me in my life based on how I think, how I behave, what I put out there. So I was somebody, like, the saying everything happens for a reason or it'll all be okay. When there was years ago where when people would say that to me and there was like a negative event, I would get really upset. I'd be like, how do you know? You don't know it's gonna be fine. What do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, everything does happen for a reason. Sometimes good reasons, sometimes bad. Like I really, those phrases did not resonate with me. Now I can say that they really do. And I really do have faith that it will all work out and it will all be okay. And that's been a whole process of me getting here. But before, I would say I didn't have as much faith. I didn't have as much ability to kind of let go and let things be. Whereas now I have a whole lot more of that. I do, at the core of all things, know that it will ultimately all be okay. There's a whole spirally path to the okay. But even in that spirally path, we're oftentimes getting benefits and positives that we don't realize we're getting until hindsight. You can take this whole COVID situation as part of it. Like, there are so many things that with the bad, there have been some goods. And that's where the whole practice of gratitude it really comes into play, being able to notice every day something that you're grateful for. And like I tell people, sometimes maybe it's just that you're breathing. Maybe it's that kind of day where all you can find to say that is good is, well, my lungs are working, I'm breathing. And if that's what you got today, that's what you got. That's all right.
And you have to be here in order to receive the blessings. So, the whole breathing part, I say all the time, you woke up. And that's 90%. The 10% just life things, some things you can control, some things you can't control, but we have to wake up.
Yep.
So perfect. Look, you said so many things in there. I was like, "Ooh, that's a t-shirt." That's a t-shirt. I'm always like, wear it on your shirt. People need to read what you're saying, because sometimes when you're talking, people hear stuff, and I'm like, I used to be like, stop. I will write it down. I'm like, you need to really understand what you just said. Like, you just touched somebody that way, and that's so true when it comes to faith. Like, yes, we know that there's a higher being. But it is, that hindsight is 2020. It really is, because you go in the moment when the storm is so loud, you don't know, he would never give you anything you couldn't handle. And you're like, but I don't want to handle it anymore. And then, like, later on, you're like, oh, I made, okay. Right. Was I dramatic? Was I dramatic? And they're like, you were over the top. You were on Dynasty. You had the shoulder pads, and like you fell off the couch.
Right.
But it's so true, and I think that a lot of people need to understand that your walk in faith is your own. And even if your parents is something, or the person who raised you is something, you don't have to feel obligated to follow their path just because. You have to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only way it really sticks, right? I mean, when we try to force ourselves into these boxes because of what we were told or how it was shown to us, and oftentimes because of it's just what we know, sometimes when we realize that that's not helping us through, or it doesn't seem to stick, then that tells you need to be seeking your own path and what works for you, what gets you through. So.
Absolutely. That was a good one. Now this one, it says, have you ever struggled with mental health issues? And I think if you could kind of elaborate, not just for yourself, but maybe some of the, it sounds so crazy, but the newer issues you're finding as you go along in your with your practice that people are coming in with, because, we don't know what the ramifications of being on social media and how it affects people so much, and just the expectation that the picture you see of like your college mate is in France and has a $100,000 job. You're like, but I don't have that, just right. Those things.
Yeah. So the first part, I have struggled myself with depression, what we might refer to as situational depression. As you mentioned, like my heartbreak work that I do starts from a very personal place of my own heartbreak journey. And in the depression that it caused me, and in my desire to kind of get myself out of it. And so, yes, I experienced depression going back, I guess, about 5-6 years ago. And nowadays, definitely the social media piece, people fall into the comparison trap. I know I'm not going to get this quote just right, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say, like, there's a lot of us comparing our behind the scenes to other people's highlight reels, as they say. So like you said, all the stuff you see on social media, my college, roommate is doing this, or this person's doing that. So much of that going on, so much of that. And it's causing a lot of people anxiety, depression, feeling, low confidence, feeling lesser than, and it's just social media makes it harder for people to just follow their own path and walk their path and, keep the blinders on, because it's right there in our faces. And so we're having to be more deliberate about managing how much we're on social media, but also, like I always say, curate your feed. Like, who are you following, so that when you're scrolling, what are you taking in? Like, be really thoughtful and deliberate about your follows, so that you expose yourself to things that are helpful to you, and you don't expose yourself to things that aren't helpful to you. So definitely a lot of that coming in. A lot of people feeling like they're not in the place that they should be right now, and the only place that like where you are is the place for you, because it's your life, and that's it. Like, that's all you have, is like your journey. And so it's completely fine to be able to acknowledge that you're not completely content with where you are right now. So then that becomes about looking at why and what it is you'd like to change, and how the steps you can take to do that, but not because you're comparing it to somebody else, or that you're running somebody else's race. So
Perfect. Yeah. And because I know that just in speaking with friends and going through this journey of trying to find yourself per se, I've noticed that that's like a huge thing. And, and I say all the time, yes, I'm on social media, but usually I'm on social media because I'm like uploading a video, or I'm like trying to make sure, I'm always trying to look at the different therapists in our areas, follow a lot of them, listen to what they have to say, and repost, because I feel like the only way that we can continue to have the conversation is if it's in your face. So if you keep seeing, yes, this is a therapist, this is what the therapist looks like, this therapist could be for you too, and she's in your area. Look at the zip code's the same. Wow. Click on her link. She has insurance information, just little things like that I think that we're so used to. And you and I spoke about this, a while back, culturally, about when you say you're going to therapy. Now, if you say you're going to therapy, it's almost a high five. It's like, you're going to therapy? Me too.
There's shirts now. People are advertising like, I'm in therapy, and it's like, oh, yes, it's true. It's true.
And I was like, this is beautiful, because this is where I stand. Like, the kids tell me all the time, Mom, you're not popular. I was like, I'm not trying to be popular. First off, I don't need y'all telling me about, don't follow me like that.
Your kids would be your biggest critics. Like, we just want to let you know, if you thought you would, if you thought you were doing that.
Like, first off, I mean, I gave birth to you. You always resort back to like, it's mom guilt. I gave birth to the kids. Are like, yeah, we get it. We heard you, but right. You're still not as popular as you think you are. I'm like, okay, all right. I think we've kind of touched on this, but how are you coping with the pandemic?
Yeah, and back to me before saying, like, I'm fortunate to be kind of living out my dream daily. I have been very fortunate to cope pretty well with this situation, considering. So my practice is out of Norwalk. That's where my office is. But I actually currently live in Queens. So I've been in New York doing my stuff virtually. And so I have the ability to be able to stay home and do my work and have my kids here. My fiance also works from home. So we're able to kind of switch off watching the kids, that sort of thing. So we're able to like stay contained and stay safe, which is saying a lot, because that's not what everybody's situation is. And then with that, like, a big piece for me is like the social contact or the social isolation that is happening for a lot of people, because, physically distancing, we call it social distancing, but the idea is to, be physically distant, but still try to stay socially connected. And that's where video chats and texting and calling and having socially distant gatherings, get-togethers and all of that, all these creative ways that we're having to try to figure out how to do this. But what I'm getting at is that I've been very deliberate about trying to like reach out to friends. I would actually say a couple of my friendships have actually solidified or grown through this process, because we've had to be more deliberate on checking on each other. Whereas before we took it more for granted that, oh, we can hang out sometime. But since that's not the case right now, it literally is like, hey, just checking in. Like, you know what I mean? Every few days, which has resulted in me communicating a bit more with some friends who I hadn't even communicated with as much before, as we say.
So I like that.
I can't take credit for it. It's been passed on to me, but I'm like, yes, that is the best way to do this, because we're in a sci-fi movie right now. So in the before, there were things that we took for granted around social interactions, and now we're having to be more deliberate about reaching out and saying hello and checking in on people and stuff like that. So I've been coping pretty well considering, and it's been nice with the summer and stuff like that, being able to go outside. But I will say that, like, as the weather starts to get cooler and colder and just be winter, where, you know, not going to be out as much, I'm thinking about how do we prepare for that to keep ourselves well. Because when this all started, it was March, so it was still chilly, but it was going into spring. So we haven't gone through an actual winter in this situation yet. And just generally speaking, when things were normal, there tends to be a general decline in mood as the winter comes along. It gets darker sooner, and some people have heard of SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and
yes,
some of us are more impacted than others around that. But I would absolutely say, like, when I look outside and it's 5 p.m. and it's dark, like, that totally brings my mood down. I personally know that I have to adjust when the season changes. And so, like, what does that do for us in these circumstances where we really, like, you can't go out the way we were and, like, stuff like that. So it's just something to, like, think about. And I'm trying to even prepare myself mentally, emotionally, physically, because even the idea of trying to get out and get exercise, I've been trying to take walks because the weather's nice, but when it's freezing cold outside, I'm not gonna be doing that anymore. We gotta,
she said, I'm a cold girl.
Oh yeah, no, that's not me. I admire people who can. I am not one. So that means I, have to be, again, really thoughtful about how I get, try to move my body inside. All of these considerations that we're having to be really creative about how we do things. I know for me, one of my biggest concerns has been my son and just social contact with other kids. Like, he really has gone months without playing with other kids besides my 1-year-old, until we, like, have a family of good friends that are, like, also quarantining, like, really strictly. So we're, as I'm calling it, potting with them, and, like, we've allowed our kids to play because we've all agreed, okay, this is what we're doing, what we have done. Like, we're being very open with each other. But, like, to even have to put that much thought into this process of kids being able to play with each other is just exhausting.
I agree with you. That's why I say, when they say they were talking about kids going back to school in person, I said, do you know how much a kindergartner hugs you? Like, the amount of love that they show to each other, because they haven't hopefully gotten to a place where they have hatred in their heart, or where, they've been hurt. I said, but a free loving child, like, just like a hippie baby, oh, you're getting hugs, kisses, snot, coughs,
all day. They share a lot of things. Some you want, some you don't, but they share, right? And it's true. Actually, I had seen a social media post from a teacher a while back, and there's no way that I'll do justice to what she said, but the main point that she made was, like, yeah, I don't know how the point that she was making was how she felt it could be more damaging to children's social emotional development to have them go back to school, at least really young kids, than, because of course we're concerned about the social emotional development of kids not being able to go to school and interact with other kids, and especially at, like, pre-K and kindergarten age, like my son's age. It's very important. That's, like, your primary developmental task at that time, is just to learn how to interact with other kids and other people, right? So she was making the point that, of course, right now this is harmful to our kids' social emotional development, but she's like, one thing I'd like you to consider is, she's like, myself as I think she was a pre-K special needs teacher, or a special needs teacher for young kids, is that she's like, my job involves a lot of hands-on contact with children, and think about the circumstances now where we're going to have kids go back in person, where she's like, do you think, like, a tantruming 3-year-old is going to keep a mask on? Or what are we going to be teaching our kids where we're telling them, oh, no, don't get too close to your classmates? Or, sharing becomes an issue now because we can't really be passing stuff back and forth. So, like, she was just making the point of, consider what kids will be learning in this environment if they go back in person, because there's going to be a lot of restrictions for safety that are completely the opposite of what we generally want to teach kids, which is to be friendly, share, maybe give a hug if someone doesn't feel good. Like all of that is not gonna be what we're trying to teach the kids right now. And so what does that do to us developmentally and socially? And again, to my point before about like the impacts being long lasting, we don't know yet. We don't fully know, as they say, what's going to come out in the wash. So this is going to be a process for everybody.
Yeah, I keep saying, I'm like, I really hope that they write this in the history books the right way, the correct way, not the way that it's being written now, but like the correct information to go out, because I think that later on when they start doing studies on how this affected people, especially because they kept, when people they kind of say, well, the world has already gone through the Spanish flu. I'm like, yes. However, we didn't have social media that connected you to every country. Like you didn't receive that information. What we were fed is what we were fed. Right. Now you can go to a whole different table and get more information, and so much more. And I said it just, the way the world bonds, because even though we're separated, we're still so connected. There are people who have had to be quarantined in another country and couldn't come back home, and they still haven't been home. And how that's going to, play out in the wash, as you said. So I think it's just going to be very interesting. So a lighthearted question, because we're so heavy. What is your favorite dish and why?
Okay, let me start this out by I am a foodie and I love variety. I realize I get tired of eating the same thing in a row. So I can't honestly say that I have one official favorite dish, because as soon as I saw that question, my head started, I'm like, but I can't pick that because I love this and this. So I'm just going to just name things that make my heart happy. I love food. I love eating. I'm definitely someone who lives to eat. I don't eat to live. I'm here because I want to eat. So with that,
I am with you 100%.
With that, what's been on my mind lately is eggplant parm. My fiance makes a really good eggplant parmesan. And so I think that will be for dinner at some point this week. So that's one, because that's one that I can actually eat like over and over and not get so tired of. So that's a big one for me, particularly on top of like angel hair pasta. I like really thin pasta. So
yes. In case you send it to me, this is what I want.
And the eggplant parm is so good because it's one of those things that's better the day after, because the sauce is the yes, you can eat it for days after, so that's always a good one. In terms of like specific foods, I love French fries and I love ice cream. So those are like definitely like love them. So those are like I call them my food groups. Fries, ice cream. So, but I'm game for just about anything. I'm over here like salivating, just thinking about different things. I'm sorry. You name it, a good burger, I'm there. Seafood, I love it. Yeah. I'm curious. You mind if I ask, since we're talking about food, do you have any favorite foods?
I do. I have favorite foods. So I have, and it's funny because the way you said food categories, I'm like, that's me to a T. And I'm like, okay, things that I love usually are in Korean. I love Korean food. I love Vietnamese food. And I love Indian food.
Oh my gosh.
Followed very closely by Mexican food, Ethiopian, like that. I'm like the flavors. I love food with flavor. I'm not really I'm not a steak and potato girl. Not because I want if I want steak, I want like chimichurri sauce over in it. Like I want it to be spicy and for me to be like, oh, this is so. Oh, it's so good. I want to sweat when I'm eating. I don't want to be a beautiful, I want to come back and look at you and be like.
Yes, I'm right there with you on that. Yes, flavors. I want to experience the food with all my senses. Yes.
So, and I always say my favorite meal used to be when I was younger. My mom would make fried pork chops, and then she would make pasta and spinach. And then she would mix the hot sauce with the ketchup and then have it as a little dipping. And I used to just oh my God. And then as I got older, I stopped eating pork. I can't eat dairy because I'm allergic to it now. Because thank you, older age. And so I was like, okay, I have to find things and places that will give me that like home feeling, because macaroni and cheese is a meal, people. Like it's delicious.
Yeah.
So now I make like vegan mac and cheese, and I cook a lot of vegan sides because I then can eat those.
Right.
And the more flavor you can get, anything with lime or cilantro or jalapenos, I'm like,
Yes.
fatty. That's why I keep saying, I'm like, every time I lose weight, I'm like, okay, so what did I cut out? Love. I cut out love. That's what I cut out.
Yes. Speaking of side note, I don't know if I Am Tabitha Brown, the actress, she is vegan. You follow her? Okay, because when you said that, I was like, oh yes, she's somebody to. Yeah, she is hilarious. But yes,
I love her. And it took me a while to love her, because I kept saying I would see like different things come across, and I was like, well, what's her business? What is happening?
Right.
What is she? And my kids were like, Mom, sit down. She is you. You are her. You just missing a Southern accent because we don't know where you were born, because your accent is very different. But just listen. I'm like, you know what? Come for me again. Again, I say.
They eat with the shade.
Woo! The oldest one is 23. So, they got like little adult shade now. Like, I'm an adult now. I'm like, get out my house. No. No. Yep. But I love her. I love her attitude. I love how in tune she is with her audience, but with herself. Yeah. And I love the fact that it's a Black woman with natural hair who's herself, representing her family. And that's just like, that's us, and that was really nice to see. Like, yeah. And I love Donna, because Donna is it.
It's a whole personality.
You see Donna? I was like, what the hell is Donna?
And then you watch long, it's like, oh, that's Donna. I know she asked me why. I'm like, what's my name gonna be? I gotta think about it.
Because when you go natural, I mean, I've been natural now. My youngest will be 18 this year, so like 19 years I've been natural, and I haven't permed my hair at any of those times, but I darn sure have cut it off enough. Mm-hmm. Like every time I think about it, I'm like, oh, I should cut it short. No, I should shave it off. No, then like when you shave it off, you're like, I should have left it alone. I'm like, you know what? This relationship is serious. It's serious. It's expensive, but they don't think it is, but it's expensive. Mm. Oh, it's expensive. So I think we actually answered the what have you learned about yourself during this time in solitude, because you're resilient and strong and making it and goal oriented,
Yes, I have learned this. I've also, on a practical note, learned something that I had already suspected but has been confirmed, which is that I'm like, I tell my parents, I'm like, we need a nanny. And now when I say that, he'll be like, no, we don't. I'm like, I don't mean somebody to come and just raise our kids. That's not what I mean. But I'm saying that it is very interesting, because even with the whole working from home thing, right? Like, you still have to, when you're working, you're still need to be working, right? And before we even started recording, my son popping in the door to say, like, you need like those. It's like you're like trying to make sure the doors are locked and the sound is okay, because you got the kids and the dog and the this and the that. So I'm just like, just somebody who for an hour or two could just keep the children contained.
Come in and be like, hey, Tracie, you need time? And you could be like, yes, please, because I'm crying right now. Just take them, whoever them are.
Right. So with that, I think a lot of us have come to this realization that children are wonderful, beautiful beings, but I call them my beautiful little monsters. It's a little bit of it's like, so there are times when you're like, okay, I could use a little bit of a break. So that
I can't drink. The kids are looking at me. Oh Lord. Okay. Never mind. I'm going to go to the bathroom, and you hear that knock. What are you doing? I'm like, just please.
Doing in here is the bathroom. Could I'll start walking to the bathroom, and I hear that. I'm like, don't follow me. I just need. And then my 5-year-old son, he's like, you need privacy? Yes, I need privacy. So he's flirting the whole privacy. And of course, he wants to use it on me now. I'm going to close the door, Mom. I need privacy. Okay, that's fine. As long as you can give me my privacy when I go to the bathroom, please. So
one of my favorite commercials is the lady who is hiding in the bathroom eating candy. And when her child knocks on the door, she's like, no. She pretends to be the dad. I'm like, because dad never gets interrupted. Or maybe they feel like they do, but like, they'll walk right past him. Even as adults now, will walk right past him and be like, you need to tell your husband. I'm like, you mean your father? Yeah, but he's your husband. You chose him. Like,
that is too much. I know. It. Woo.
I see. That's what I mean. Like, woo. What was the last song you sang out loud?
I have my music right here because I'm like, I don't know. But I'm definitely sure at least something from Chloe and Halle's latest album, right? Ungodly Hour. It's so good. It's so good. So probably half the songs on there. Definitely singing out loud. It's so good.
It is really good. I'm like, going girl. Every time I see him, I'm like, I saw y'all grow up.
Right? I know, they're so cute.
And now they're sexy now. And I was like, first off, at their age, I wasn't even that secure in
right.
Like, have like little cutoff shorts, but like that's a woo. Like I'm still not that grown yet. I'm still working on, showing a little bit much. I'm like, wait a minute, pull this back in because this might take a picture and it's the wrong angle. If you could go back in time just once and give yourself advice, at what age and what would the advice be?
Ooh, I don't even have this fully figured out, I have to say. Like, I think this is a question. It's a good question, first of all, because it's a question that I think I'm going to continue to think on even after this. And I'm like, wait, no. It would have been, I'm a message you. I'm like, actually, it would have been. But I think that.
At least I got one. Call me back now. I know what it is.
I think right now my thought is I was like, what was the time that I can go to where maybe I felt the most, I don't know if it would be insecure or not at ease. And one of the times I would say is maybe around the age of 12, 13. So maybe I'd go back to that age and I would tell myself it's all going to be okay. It's all going to work out. That is probably right now. That's what my thought is that around that time. And that was a time where it's not even that anything particularly negative was going on in my life, but that's a weird age. So what, preteen into teenage, where it's just kind of like stuff just starts to flip. And that's also like middle school age. So that's a particularly awkward, tough period in life.
Middle school was horrible. I am not a middle school fan. I don't know why, but I'm just not.
Well, I think that's where it really starts to like take a turn because like you're going from childhood to preteen, and like that's where a lot of the mean girl dynamics I think start to come about for girls. And so it's a weird time for me. One big transition was that, so I grew up in Florida. So I was living in Florida with my mom, but she wanted to move back up north, up here where her family's from. And so that was a big transitional period for me. So I was in the middle of my freshman year of high school when I moved from Florida to Connecticut. And so, that I think was like
weather change for you, like your whole everything. That's a big, like you can just, that was huge. At that age.
Yes. So I would go back to that age and tell myself it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be all right.
But you stayed. You didn't go back to Florida. You didn't run away. You stayed,
I did stay. I am staying. I love New York City, so.
I'm like, I have to say, I am just always amazed because it was when we spoke before and you were like, you kept saying, you in Connecticut but you had to travel to home. And just the fact that you are making it, you're a New Yorker making it with all the crazy stuff that has been happening between the pandemic and just, how is your neighborhoods doing? Has your neighborhood really been, I don't mean by the pandemic itself, but like the businesses within your neighborhood and everything, how have they been?
Yeah. And funny enough, you asked that. I was telling my fiance recently that we need to just like do a drive around like some of our favorite restaurants and stuff to see if they still exist. Like we very much have been quarantining, so we have not been doing a whole lot of going out. And so But funny enough, like I'm on, different email lists and stuff about stuff that goes on in the city. And they sent an email saying like, here are restaurants that are closed. And we went down the list, and a couple of them that were like, oh no, we either wanted to try that place or we like that place. They're done. And it's really like, wow. So yeah, our specific neighborhood, there's literally a couple of places I have on my mind that I'm like, we need to go by and see how they're doing, if they're still in existence. I don't know yet. I don't know. Haven't gone by to see, but I'm preparing for grieving that, the going out and realizing what still is and isn't there. One place, well, this wasn't due to COVID, so to be fair, but Miss Jessie's hair salon, the famous one in Brooklyn, she went down to Miami, but that was honestly, when I read up on it, it was before COVID. But the point I'm making is that, like, I was like, we're gonna have to figure out what hair places, your favorite hair places that are still open, your nail salons that are open, your restaurant, like whatever your places were. Yeah. You have to check on them and see if they still exist. That's a real piece of this whole thing, that again, the aftermath of all of this, when outside opens up fully again, this whole idea of thinking you're going to go into your usual spot. Your usual spot ain't there anymore.
Yeah, it's because it is like losing family, especially if a lot of us have like our favorite places we go to, that like when you walk through the door, they know you and you guys, ask questions. And I was like, because we've been so isolated and we've been trying to hide as much as possible, that we don't even know the ramifications of what happened to the favorite restaurants. We don't know what happened to, like you say, your hair stores, because I remember it was this big push to try not to dye your hair or do anything with your hair until you could get back and to see your beautician. And a lot of us were like, you don't know what we're holding on to. Like, I know when COVID happened for me, I had just braided my hair. Like was like a month into having my hair freshly braided. Right. And I had to learn how to braid my own hair. I was like, This is where the nanny kicks in. You want a nanny? I need somebody to come in and get me together. Just like piecemeal it in.
Yes, we all do. I've just kind of been like, well, I feel like there's almost a solidarity, or at least that I have experienced. Just so speaking of like social media and stuff, not even just social media, even the news. So like Joy Reid, like, she got her like new show and everything on MSNBC. And I was watching her hairstyle evolve through this process, where she had gone from clearly like a fresh do. And I was like, okay, she tied the bandana or the scarf around, because I'm like, because the edge of the start, I know what's going on, Joy, I get it. And then when she like came, then finally I think she just took the hair out and was just doing natural. I'm like, yep, that's the obvious next step, because if you can't braid your own hair like me, I'm like, I'm just gonna have to take it out and go natural. Just like, yes, you just like watch it and like, what's going on. You're like, yep, I know, because right now, especially when it all first happened, you didn't know it was safe to go into somebody's shop or even have them come to your home, whatever, right? So yeah. That whole process. So like, also just seeing people on social media where it's like, oh, so who might have been used to having on a full face and their brows waxed and plucked, they're showing up just way more natural themselves. Like, I get it. And it's like a certain, like, we're all in this. Okay, we all in
like,
this.
Oh, I'm not the one messed up. Okay.
Yes.
See
that. Yes.
Because I was some kind of way. I was like,
I had a gel manicure when it all started, and that slowly just grew out, because you know how, like, I mean, I attempted to take it off myself, didn't have acetone nail polish remover. That was but usually you go in and have them take it off, and that's my go-to. I'm like, I don't want to deal with it, so I just let it grow out. So like, if you look at videos from like March, April, it's just a gel manicure growing out, because I'm like, I don't know what to do with these. So until I can get into a nail salon, this is gonna be how it is. Now
I was like, I went to the nail salon twice after things kind of calmed down a little bit. They started opening up, and then I decided I was not going back. And I have been wearing acrylics for easily 20-ish years, if not more. And I was like, I have to take them off so my nails can breathe. 1, 2, I need to get used to not having my nails done in case something crazy happens again, because I was online and it had like a technique where you used dental floss to go under the nail and you could get it off. And I was like, okay. And I that's how I got them off. And then I cut everything all the way down. And I kept sitting at the table, and my husband goes, "Why do you look like you're gonna cry?" And I was like, "What is that?" I was like, "What's that?"
This is stressful, man, for so many reasons.
Everybody says. I was like, "What is that?" Anyway,
I know.
so let's see what we have. I think we have 2 more questions, and then we can wrap it up.
Okay.
No, actually, we have 2 questions. Name 3 positive things about yourself.
Okay. I'm a dreamer. I have big dreams, big goals, and life excites me. I am really dedicated to finding my own happiness and helping others find theirs. I think that is the purpose of life, is finding your happy. I guess that was 2. I don't know what's 3. I think that I am. This sounds so ironic. I know I'm a therapist. When I say I think I'm easy to talk to and people can talk to me, it's so different from professional and personal realm. So the people in my life who I purposely attempt not to therapize, I believe that I am a supportive friend in person who they feel comfortable talking to. So
She said, and I'm not talking to you as a therapist. It's just Tracie. No, seriously, it's just me. No, for but tell me that problem again. Okay, never mind.
Tell me if you want me to say anything. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut and listen, because I don't want anything I say to come off as giving professional. But I promise I'm just here as a friend. But yes, so I think those are my 3.
Those are good ones. And being a dreamer has gotten you where you are, because you have to dream in order to get there. Yeah. That's my dog. You know what? I feel like the guy who was doing a really important interview, and the son comes in, and then the mother dives on the floor and like rolls. It was a guy or like a news anchor, and she drops on the floor and like army rolls across the floor to grab the kid, and like the kid is getting drug out the room, but the kid reaches for like the, and it's all on tape, like it's all on, and the guy's like
he's trying to keep.
This isn't happening in live time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, I have a dog. It is what it is. And the last question, what do you say to people before you hang up the phone?
I love you. People who I love you. I'm a verbalizer. My mom always was. My mom told us she loved us every day. She would say, "I love you." And so it just became very normal in my world. So I try to promote that to the people closest to me as well. So I tell them I love them.
Oh, see, I love that. I love hearing different people's responses, because it's just, I think at the end of the day, all of us want to hang the phone up and have the people that we love know, like, I expect to hear from you because we're connected, versus like, bye, click.
Right.
Hey, I mean, I had a really good conversation. We was talking for 2 hours. All right, bye. Like, okay. I love you too. You can't hear me because the cell phone don't make no sound when you hang up on somebody, but
I was gonna say it to the phone.
I miss those days when you used to be able to like slap the phone and like they could hear it. Like,
right.
I'm like, now it's like, do. It's not the same.
No,
anger, it does not sound like do. It totally does not.
No.
But I appreciate you doing this. I really do. I look forward to talking to you again. I really expect to talk to you again.
Yes.
Because it's a beautiful, beautiful connection. And, I will absolutely, again, be posting and sending out things that you post. And, the more you post, I'm like, okay, we can keep forward. Still learning the social media thing, because, when it's longer, you have to upload it on something different, and too many buttons. I don't know.
It's a lot.
But can you tell everybody where they can follow you at?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. That's probably the best place to follow me because I update that the most. It's therapist.tracie. So that's therapist.tracie. If you follow me there, you'll be most up to date of things that are going on, things that I'm doing. You can reach out to me or you can figure out how to reach out to me for therapy through there. I have a stress management online program, and the link in my bio you can go to. I'm going to be doing an Instagram live with a couple of researchers next week about ghosting, about being ghosted and stuff like that. So that's the next thing probably that's coming up for me. But yeah, so if you follow me there, you get all the info.
I'll be tuning in because I'm very interested in the in the theology that people come up behind that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Interesting. And this is where we try not to be violent because we love people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the answer. See, I like yours. Sure. But I hope to talk to you soon. Thank you again. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend and you have some good weather where it doesn't rain continuously like it's doing here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love speaking with you.
Thank you. I will talk to you soon, sweetie.
Yes. All right.
Bye.
Bye.